What's going on, guys? It's the Draft Nerd, and today we are going to be reacting to the Draft Network's Keith Sanchez's new mock draft. So this one dropped March 31st, and so we're a few days late on it, but I still think it's pretty relevant. So without further ado, let's get into it. So at number 1, we got the Chicago Bears taking Caleb Williams. I mean, yeah, that's what everyone's going to be doing. That's the obvious pick. Not going to spend too much time on it. Hopefully the Bears get their franchise quarterback. Alright, number 2, we got the Commanders taking Drake May, the North Carolina quarterback. And really, we've seen the Commanders taking Drake May in some mock drafts. JJ McCarthy even. I mean, I took him in my latest mock draft. We see Jaden Daniels. Like, this pick is almost up in the air. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of smoke screens going on and things like that. But if I was a GM of the Commanders, I would be taking Drake May. I think he's pretty comfortably the QB2. And if we're being honest, I think Drake May's closer to Caleb Williams than he is to Jaden Daniels and JJ McCarthy. So I think if the Commanders don't take Drake May, they would be making a pretty big mistake. Alright, moving on to number 3, we got the Patriots taking JJ McCarthy, which means that Jaden Daniels is most likely going to be falling a little bit. So let's see what he says about the JJ McCarthy pick. Although JJ McCarthy has a much smaller sample size compared to the other quarterbacks in this draft, the intangibles plus the physical skill set makes this pick all too good to pass up on for the Patriots. Plus, they had pretty decent success drafting another quarterback from Michigan, talking about Tom Brady. So, I mean, yeah, that's an interesting storyline, but I mean, I still don't think JJ McCarthy is worth a top 3 pick, not even really a top 10 pick in my opinion. I would much rather the Patriots draft Jaden Daniels here, and I'd even rather him take a non-quarterback, whether that's a Marvin Harrison Jr., a Joe Alt, or a Malik Neighbors. Like, I'm just not a big fan of the JJ McCarthy pick here, but I understand that JJ's getting a lot of hype, and this is a very real possibility, just not necessarily something I would do personally. Moving on, we got the Arizona Cardinals taking Marvin Harrison Jr. Yes, this is an obvious pick. I don't know if there's going to be trades in this mock draft, but if there aren't any trades, then yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the obvious pick here. The Cardinals need receiver help now that Rondale Moore's gone, Marquise Brown's gone. They realistically only have like Michael Wilson, who is injury prone and is a wide receiver 3 at best in my opinion. So love the pick here. Could also trade down. Oh, and there are trades. Okay, so yeah, the Cardinals could have traded down here. I think that's a possibility as well. But regardless, I like the Marvin Harrison Jr. pick. But now we have the Atlanta Falcons trading up with the Chargers and taking Malik Neighbors. Probably snagging Malik Neighbors from the Giants. But, I mean, pairing up, Drake London with Malik Neighbors, you have Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, and the newly acquired Kirk Cousins. I mean, that's a very, very, very scary offense. And a very, very fun one to watch, probably. So I love that pick there. I would assume, let's see if they say what they gave up. It doesn't look like it. So, I mean, yeah, they're probably giving up maybe a third or a second, something like that. I'm not too sure. But regardless, I love the pick there. Moving on, we got my favorite team, the New York Giants, taking Jaden Daniels, a quarterback out of LSU. And, I mean, if Jaden Daniels falls and you don't have to, give up draft capital to try to trade up for him, I'm completely on board. If Drake May somehow fell to the Giants, completely on board. If JJ McCarthy fell to the Giants, I would much rather take a Rome Odunze here or even a Joe Alt. I really think that if it's not one of those top 3 quarterbacks being Caleb Williams, Drake May, or Jaden Daniels, I don't think the Giants should draft a quarterback. They've basically tried to get Daniel Jones weapons ever since he, came into the league and have failed to do that. So, I mean, I would like to see a Rome Odunze pick here and, just give Daniel Jones a chance to work with that offense, because I really don't think he's gotten a fair shake. Like, he had a really good season 2 seasons ago, which got him that contract, and even then he had, Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, like, he didn't have a number 1 target. So, who knows, maybe with a number 1 target, Daniel Jones could, actually be pretty good. But regardless, I like the Jaden Daniels pick here, as long as we're not giving up draft capital to try to move up to get a quarterback. Moving on to number 7, we got the Tennessee Titans taking Joe Alt. And this is a pretty standard pick. I mean, If Joe Alt falls, this is a blue chip prospect in my opinion, falling to number 7, and the Titans will be doing a really good job at bolstering that offensive line. They took Peter Skronsky last year, taking Joe Alt this year. They signed Lloyd Cushenberry. Like, that's a really good left side of the offensive line. So I like what they're doing. Titans fans might, be a little bit bored of taking offensive linemen in the first round, but it's a necessary thing to do if you want to build a really solid team. Moving on, we got the Chargers, who traded down with the Falcons, taking Talise Fuanga, the offensive tackle from Oregon State. And I'm assuming he would probably take Trey Pipkins' spot on that right side tackle. And if that is the case for Sean Slater, Talise Fuanga, like, that's a really good tackle duo. I mean, I don't got no qualms about that. And you trade down and get draft capital. Like, I love that for the Chargers. Moving on, we got the Bears taking Laiatu Latu, the edge out of UCLA at 9. I mean, I would much rather see them take a Romo Dunze, because they got Keenan Allen, that is more of a rental. You still need another really good receiver, so why not bring in a potential all-pro receiver in Romo Dunze and have just 3 really good receivers for Caleb Williams to, share the ball with. If you are going to go defense here, I would much rather see a Dallas Turner. I just think he's a little bit more of that upside pick, and when you're picking in the top 10, you kind of want to swing for the fences. Also could be a trade down spot with a team like the Jaguars or maybe the Raiders, something like that. Laiatu Latu here, especially with the injury concerns, I don't know if I'd feel comfortable taking him in the top 10. Moving on to 10, we got the Jets taking Romo Dunze. Love that pick. I know they brought in Mike Williams, they have Garrett Wilson, but I mean, this is the Jets' year to go all in, so why not get Aaron Rodgers all the weapons he can get? You could also go Brock Bowers here. I think that would be a really solid pick as well. They brought in the 2 tackles and Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses. You could look to maybe go with maybe a J.C. Latham or a Olu Fashanu here, because both those tackles are pretty old, so getting that insurance policy for Aaron Rodgers would also be ideal. But I like the Romo Dunze pick. I think that's a immediate, probably top 3 wide receiver core in the league. So, I mean, hey, can't go wrong with that. Moving on, we got the Minnesota Vikings taking Michael Penix Jr. here at 11. I mean, is it a possibility? 100%. I really like Michael Penix in like a Vikings system. I would much rather it be a second round pick though. Because this is now 5 quarterbacks in the top 11 picks. How realistic is that? I don't know. The Vikings also have the trade capital to trade up with a team like the Chargers and try to snag that Jaden Daniels or something like that. Like, you could also look in that direction, but I don't know. I don't like the Michael Penix here at number 11. That's a bit too rich for my liking. Okay, moving on to the Broncos, we got Bo Nix. So that is 6 quarterbacks with the top 12 picks. That's half of these 12 picks being quarterbacks. I don't know how likely that is. I mean, all these teams do need quarterback, aside for, I guess, maybe the Giants, but I still think they need a quarterback too. So, I mean, all these teams need quarterbacks, but is it realistic that all 6 of these teams draft a quarterback in the first round? Probably not. I think Michael Penix and Bo Nix are, either late, day one guys. A team like the Broncos or the Vikings might trade back into day one so they can get that quarterback on the 5-year option, or 5th-year option. But I don't know. This is a bit too rich for Michael Penix and Bo Nix in my opinion. Although I do like their fits on both these teams, just a little too rich. Moving on to 13, we got the Raiders taking Nate Wiggins, the first cornerback off the board. And I know a lot of people have soured on Nate Wiggins because of his weight. But, I mean, he is an explosive lockdown corner. I mean, he's probably my cornerback 2, maybe 3. I do like Quinton Mitchell a little bit more, as well as, I'm a big fan of Cooper DeJean. He's a little bit of a different player than Nate Wiggins, but, same position still. I like the pick. I also think they can't go quarterback. I mean, there's no other quarterbacks to take. You're going to take Spencer Rattler here at 13. They got to go defense here. I could also see a Jerzon Newton maybe, or even a Dallas Turner still on the board. There's different options, but I'm not opposed to this Nate Wiggins pick. Moving on to 14, we got Olu Fashanu going to the Saints. Saints need offensive tackle help desperately. Ramczyk is not in the best shape with his knee. Trevor Penning's not great. They really don't have any tackles, so you got to at least get one tackle for next season, and that's Olu Fashanu. I'm a big fan of that pick. Moving on, we got Tyler Guyton going 15 to the Colts. They don't really need a tackle or offensive lineman in general. I think there's more pressing needs, like, you could go with a Brian Thomas here, A.D. Mitchell. You could go Brock Bowers, like, even Quinion Mitchell. Like, there's a lot of other options besides the Tyler Guyton here at 15. I really don't like that pick at all. Moving on, we got the Seattle Seahawks going Dallas Turner. Now, this is a pick I can get down with. Do I expect Dallas Turner to be here at 16? Probably not. I do think he's going to be the first edge rusher off the board. He could possibly be a top 10 pick, but, I don't see him getting past the Colts there at 15. But if this does happen, good pick for the Seahawks. Moving on, we got Jacksonville Jaguars going Kool-Aid McKinstry. I haven't seen Kool-Aid McKinstry go this high in a while. I mean, he's going over guys like Cooper DeJean, Terrion Arnold, Quinion Mitchell. Like, I don't know. This isn't, this isn't like November anymore. Like, Kool-Aid McKinstry isn't the third best, or he's UBCB2 right here. So, yeah, I like the cornerback pick, but I would much rather a Terrion Arnold, Cooper DeJean, or Quinion Mitchell there. Moving on to the Bengals, they're taking Brock Bowers, the tight end out of Georgia. Really good pick. I love it. They could also go tackle maybe with a guy like Amarius Mims still on the board, but Brock Bowers falling here to 18, blue chip prospect in my opinion. Granted, it is a tight end, which isn't as valuable, but getting a blue chip prospect at 18, no matter the position, is a home run pick in my opinion. Moving on to 19, we got the Los Angeles Rams going Troy Fautanu, the tackle out of Washington. And, I really lean more towards the defense when I look at the Rams' first-round pick. They lost Aaron Donald, one of the really only bright spots on that defense. I know they got Byron Young, who had a solid rookie season, as well as Kobe Turner, but, their secondary is very weak. Linebackers, although, you're not going to take a linebacker here, but I like Jerzon Newton, Byron Murphy, Jared Verse is still on the board, Cooper DeJean. Like, I'd much rather a defensive pick here, but, Troy Fautanu is still a good player. Moving on to 20, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers taking Kingsley Suamataia, the tackle out of BYU. That's the highest I've seen Kingsley go in a minute. Guys like Amarius Mims are still on the board. Who else is still on the board? We got Tyler Guyton's gone. The tackle well has ran dry, but J.C. Latham's still on the board. Amarius Mims is still on the board. Like, those two tackles are much higher on my board than Kingsley Suamataia. You could also go cornerback here. Again, Quinion Mitchell's still on the board. Terrion Arnold's still on the board. So, not the biggest fan of that pick. Moving on, we got the Dolphins taking Graham Barton. Really like that pick. I think the Dolphins need to go offensive line here. Whether that's tackle, guard, or center. Like, they just need help on the offensive line. And Graham Barton is one of the better prospects on that offensive line in the class. So, really good pick. I also like Jackson Powers-Johnson here. Amarius Mims would also be a really good fit here. But yeah, offensive line, home run of a pick. 22, we got the Eagles taking Terrion Arnold. Yeah, that's a great pick. Is Terrion Arnold still going to be on the board here at 22? Doubtful in my opinion, but if he is, great pick. Having him, I guess he would play in the slot year one. Have Darius Slay and James Bradbury play on the outside. Or maybe, I don't know, CJ Gardner-Johnson might play a little bit in the slot. Terrion Arnold kick out to the outside. And just have James Bradbury, be a rotational guy. Either way, I think that the Eagles do need cornerback help because both their guys are, aging a bit. So, great pick in my opinion. I love it. Moving on, we got the Vikings taking Johnny Newton, a.k.a. Jerzon Newton. And yeah, really like this pick as well. I think he's a great fit in Minnesota. They need help on that defensive line. And Johnny Newton is a borderline top 10 talent in this class, in my opinion. So, great pick for me. Moving on, we got the Dallas Cowboys taking Jackson Powers-Johnson. I'd much rather them take offensive tackle, whether that's J.C. Latham or Amarius Mims. They lost Tyron Smith. Terrence Steele, is solid. So, I don't know. Jackson Parra-Johnson is a really good player, but I'd much rather the Cowboys take a tackle if they're going to look at that offensive line. Moving on, we got the Packers taking Amarius Mims, getting that David Bakhtiari replacement. Like, sure, I like it. The Packers are a bit of a weird, selection here. I really don't like picking for the Packers. I mean, you could go offensive line. I do like that. You could also go with a Cooper DeJean here. I think that's a really good fit for Cooper DeJean and the Packers. But yeah, I like the pick. Amarius Mims is a really good player, just, not the most experienced guy in the world. Maybe not a day one starter. Moving on to 26, we have the Buccaneers taking Xavier Worthy. And, I like Xavier Worthy. He's a speedster, obviously, breaking the 40-yard dash record. And I just think that's going to overrate him a bit. We've seen what happened to John Ross. He was, skyrocketed into a top 10 pick. Didn't work out. And Xavier Worthy, I do think, is probably a better prospect than John Ross was, but I still don't think Xavier Worthy is a top 10 talent. You still got guys like Xavier Legette, Ladd McConkey, A.D. Mitchell, Brian Thomas is still on the board. Receiver is also not the biggest of needs. I mean, you got Chris Godwin, you got Mike Evans. I know they're getting up there in age, but you also need cornerback help pretty badly, and there's still Quinion Mitchell is still on the board. You could also go edge rusher here. Jared Verse is still on the board. I don't know. That's not a fan of that pick either. 27, we got Quinion Mitchell going to the Arizona Cardinals. That's a home run pick in my opinion. If you can get Quinion Mitchell in the back end of the first round, good on you, because I don't see that happening come draft day. Moving on, we got the Buffalo Bills taking Xavier Legette. Yeah, I mean, he's that bigger deep threat alongside Stephon Diggs. I also like a Keon Coleman here, although first round for Keon Coleman isn't likely in my opinion. Who else is still on the board? Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas is a home run of a pick here. Brian Thomas should be the pick, and if it's not Brian Thomas, A.D. Mitchell. I think this is a little bit high for Xavier Legette when those guys are still on the board, but I do like the receiver pick for the Bills. Detroit Lions go Jared Verse here. Home run of a pick, getting him to pair alongside Aiden Hutchinson. You got DJ Reader in the middle, that's a chef's kiss. You could also look to go offensive line here. That interior of that offensive line for the Lions is aging. You don't know how much longer Frank Ragnell's got. So you could go. I'm a big fan of Zach Frazier going here, but if Jared Verse is still on the board, you take him over Zach Frazier. The Baltimore Ravens going, where does he? Brian Thomas and A.D. Mitchell are still on the board, I'm almost certain. And there's a lot of receivers like Xavier Legette and Keon Coleman that should not be getting taken ahead of those guys. I like the receiver pick for the Ravens, but Brian Thomas and A.D. Mitchell will be much better receivers here. Not to say I don't like Keon Coleman, because I do like Keon Coleman quite a bit. 31, here we got the San Francisco 49ers going J.C. Latham. Getting that Trent Williams replacement. I know he's still playing at an elite level, but he's, in his high 30s. Offensive tackles usually start to decline around this range. So why not bring in a J.C. Latham to learn behind a guy like Trent Williams? You could also go with a cornerback here. Cooper DeJean's still on the board. I wouldn't mind that pick, but offensive tackle is usually my go-to pick for the 49ers, especially if a guy like J.C. Latham still on the board. Moving on, we got the Chiefs going Ennis Rakestraw. And like I said, this mock draft was made on March 31st, so I don't think that the Rashee Rice news broke yet. So, now that the Rashee Rice situation is going on, I think this Chiefs pick is back to a receiver-needy team. And so Brian Thomas is still on the board, A.D. Mitchell still on the board. And even, if this was before the Rashee Rice news, if A.D. Mitchell and Brian Thomas are still on the board, they're taking them 100 times over Ennis Rakestraw. Even though I like Ennis Rakestraw, I do like him as a player. They lost L'Jarius Sneed, so they do need to replace him. But I think you can do that in the later rounds. This is a pretty deep cornerback class as well as receiver, but I don't know. Brian Thomas Jr. is a better player than Ennis Rakestraw. All right, moving on to the second round here. We're going to breeze through this just a little bit faster. 33, we got Ladd McConkey. The Panthers getting that separator. I don't know if I like the fit there now that Deontay Johnson's in Carolina. They're both, my player comp for Ladd McConkey is Deontay Johnson, so they're kind of the same player. Brian Thomas is still on the board. I think he's going to the Patriots, if I can see that correctly. But Ladd McConkey is the same player. A.D. Mitchell and Brian Thomas are better fits, in my opinion, for Carolina. Although I do like Eli McConkey, don't get me wrong. Yep, 34, we got Brian Thomas Jr. going to the Patriots. Home run of a pick. If you can get your quarterback of the future, quote unquote, they took J.J. McCarthy, and then pair him up with a really good, probably top 15 caliber player in the draft and a Brian Thomas Jr. Great pick for the Patriots. Highly doubtful that Brian Thomas is still on the board here in the second round, though. Moving on to 35, we got the Arizona Cardinals taking Braden Fisk. And, I like this pick. Braden Fisk has skyrocketed up people's draft boards after the Senior Bowl and the Combine. So, the Cardinals need help on that interior of the defensive line. But now that I'm thinking about it, I think Byron Murphy's still on the board. So, Byron Murphy should be getting taken over Braden Fisk, although I do like Braden Fisk a lot. 36, we got the Commanders taking Jordan Morgan, the tackle out of Arizona. They need help at tackle. They need help at offensive line in general. I like that pick there. Finally, we got Cooper DeJean going in the second round. I hate to see that. But the Chargers getting Cooper DeJean here. Really good fit. They need help in that secondary, pairing someone alongside Asante Samuel and then Derwin James in the backfield or in the safety position. So, Cooper DeJean's that Swiss Army knife. He can play safety, he can play slot corner, he can play outside corner. Really good pick here at 37. Tennessee Titans going Edgerrin Cooper. Yeah, I like it. I'm a bigger fan of Peyton Wilson. I would much rather see Peyton Wilson go as linebacker one, over Edgerrin Cooper. But Peyton Wilson's got the injury concerns. Edgerrin Cooper is more of the safer pick in my opinion. So, I think that's a pretty solid pick. Panthers are going Chop Robinson with that Giants second round pick. And yeah, getting Chop Robinson, that's basically your Brian Burns replacement. Chop Robinson is pretty raw in my opinion. Super athletic though, super high upside. So why not bring him in with that pick and try to develop him? 40, we got Christian Haynes. We got the Commanders going offensive line again. And double dipping on the offensive line, that's fine in my books. They also need help at the edge rusher position, but if as long as this offensive line or defensive line here, I'm fine with it for the Commanders. Moving on to 41, we got the Packers going Junior Colson, the linebacker out of Michigan. Sure, I think there's worse needs for the Packers. A Tyler Nubin's still on the board. I would like that pick for the Packers. But if you do go linebacker, I'd much rather Peyton Wilson here than a Junior Colson. Moving on to 42, we got the Texans taking Byron Murphy. Keeping him in Texas, a steal in the second round. If this happens, amazing pick for the Texans because Byron Murphy could go, as early as top 15. So getting him at 42, steal. Atlanta Falcons going Darius Robinson. Yeah, the Falcons need help on that defensive line. They don't really have any, reliable pass rushers. Arnold Ebiketie is, he's cool, but he's no, edge rusher one. Darius Robinson could be that guy, although I still think Darius Robinson is more of that secondary pass rusher. Here we go. We got 44. The Raiders going Spencer Rattler. I'm a big fan of Spencer Rattler. I wouldn't be mad at a team taking him in the second round, especially if 6 quarterbacks go in the first. So Raiders need a quarterback. They have Aiden O'Connell, who they're kind of trying to develop. Gardner Minshew's there. Why not get another developmental quarterback in Spencer Rattler? I'm not opposed to that. We got the Saints going Troy Franklin, pairing him up alongside with Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave. I like that. Troy Franklin is one of my favorite players in the class. So getting him at 45, I love it. 46, we got the Colts going Mike Sanders still, the slot cornerback out of Michigan. And yeah, I like it. He is a slot-only corner, and Kenny Moore is getting up there in age. So yeah, not a terrible pick. Not the best pick in the world, especially when A.D. Mitchell's still on the board. I don't like it. 47, we got the Giants going A.D. Mitchell, so they get their potential quarterback of the future in Jaden Daniels, and they get him a potential number 1 target in A.D. Mitchell. If this happens for the Giants, sign me up. I would love this draft for the Giants. Getting a potential, all-pro receiver and getting a potential quarterback of the future in the same draft, yes, please. 48, we got Roger Rosengarten, the tackle out of Washington, going to the Jaguars. I think he's more of a third-round pick, but here at 48, I'm trying to think of any other tackles that they could go ahead of him. I mean, Patrick Paul maybe, Kieran Amagaji, more developmental than anything. I'm not mad at it, sure. 49 here we got Ruka Rojo. They got him listed as edge rusher out of Clemson. He's more of a defensive tackle in my opinion. But either way, you got to replace DJ Reader. Ruka Rojo isn't, the same player as DJ Reader, but he can, fill a spot on that defensive line. Moving on to number 50, we got the Eagles going Zach Frazier, the offensive guard out of West Virginia. And like I said, he goes in my first round pretty consistently to like the Lions. So having the Eagles draft him at 50, they're amazing at developing offensive linemen. He could be that, I think it will be right guard of the future. Assuming Tyler Steen is going to take that spot, I think Zach Frazier could definitely compete for that guard spot year one. Moving on to 51, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers taking Ricky Pearsall. I like that. Getting your Deontay Johnson replacement. The Pittsburgh Steelers are really good at developing, wide receivers in that D2 range. So I think Ricky Pearsall could be their next Deontay Johnson. 52, we got the Rams taking Max Melton. Yeah, I like it. If I'm nitpicking, I do like Kyrie Jackson a little bit more, who's still on the board. But off the top of my head, I'm not terribly mad at it. Maybe a little too rich in my opinion, but nothing crazy. Moving on to 53, we got the Eagles taking Jarrian Jones, the cornerback out of Florida State, and I know a lot of people like him, but that's a little too rich in my opinion. I think they could have went in the first round and got a Cooper DeJean as opposed to a Jarrian Jones. And didn't they take? Pretty sure they took cornerback in the first round, didn't they? Yeah, they took Terry and Arnold in the first, so I don't think they need that much help in the secondary. But I mean, hey, do what you want to do, Eagles. 54, we got the Browns taking Kieran Amagaji. Yeah, developmental offensive tackle. Every team needs one. You always want to have that developmental guy who can possibly be a starter for cheap, basically. So I'm not mad at that pick at all. 55, we got the Miami Dolphins going Chris Braswell. They do need edge rush help. They're just like meh when it comes to pass rush. With Christian Wilkins gone, their defensive line is a little depleted. So getting some defensive line help in general, whether that's edge rusher or defensive tackle, I'm a fan of it. 56, we got Peyton Wilson going to the Cowboys. I like that pick a lot. The Cowboys haven't done much this offseason, so basically getting any player is a plus for him. Leighton Vander Esch did retire, so getting his replacement in Peyton Wilson, you got to love that. Tampa Bay Buccaneers going Trey Benson. I mean, sure, like I said, they need help in that secondary. They need help on that defensive line. This is a bit of a luxury pick, especially when you got Rachaad White still in the backfield. I'm a big fan of Sean Tucker as well. I feel like that's a luxury pick, and the Buccaneers can't really afford to be taking luxury picks. They took receiver in the first round, running back in the second round. I mean, there's more pressing needs. Come on. We got the Packers taking Tyler Newman. And I was kind of tempted to take him in the first round to the Packers. So, I mean, hey, Tyler Newman at 58, I love that. Houston Texans going Jarvis Brownlee Jr., the cornerback out of Louisville. He's more of a day 3 guy in my opinion, early day 3, but, late third round maybe is the highest I'd be willing to take Jarvis Brownlee, so, a little too rich in my opinion. Number 60, we got the Buffalo Bills going to T'Vondre Sweat, the, massive defensive tackle out of Texas. And yeah, beefing up that interior, the defensive line, helping the run game, you can't go wrong there. Detroit Lions going Roman Wilson. Not the biggest fan of this fit here. I think Roman Wilson's more of a slot guy. They already have a really good slot guy in Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm trying to think of who else is on the board at the receiver position. I mean, Devontae Walker, I wouldn't be mad at here. Javon Baker also, I don't know. I like Roman Wilson a lot, but I don't like the fit there in Detroit. Baltimore Ravens going Justin Aboyke, or I think it's Aboigbe. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it, but I do like him a lot. Don't really see him going this high too often, but I mean, I'm not opposed to it, I guess. 63, we got the 49ers going Cam Hart. I'm a bigger fan of Kyrie Jackson, but I do like the cornerback pick there. And then 64, we got the Chiefs going Brendan Rice Jr., or not Jr., but Brendan Rice, son of Jerry Rice. He's more of a 4th round type of player for me, so taking him at the back end of the 2nd round is a little too rich in my opinion. Much rather Devontae Walker here, Javon Baker. Who else is still on the board here? I'm sure there's a lot of other receivers I would rather than Brendan Rice here at 64. But that is going to do it. Let me know what you guys think of Keith Sanchez's mock draft. It's 2 rounds. You know, there's a lot of questionable picks for me, but let me know what you guys thought of it down in the comments. And if you like the video, please consider subscribing. And as always, this is the Draft Nerd, and thanks for watching.